Thanks, Reg. How is everyone? Good. So, first thing in the morning, I'm going to give you a couple of warnings, okay? First warning, my sense of humor is a little irreverent. Anybody here easily offended? You all work in education, you can't be offended, right? Absolutely. So I will give you that warning. Please, anything that offends anyone that I have to say, do not blame MicroK12 and do not blame HP. It is solely on me, okay? So first off. Secondly, I ask a lot of questions. So I hope you'll help me, and as I ask questions, I'll ask for show of hands. Please be involved, okay? Does that sound all right? Great. So I think I have the greatest gig at HP. I work with education and have for 25 years. And my role currently is we sit in strategy inside of HP. So we overlay over the top of everything else HP does. We get to see what are the cool technologies, what are our HP Labs folks that work down near Stanford who are looking at technology 10 years in advance, right? Going, what in the world are these technologies going to do for the world? And then we get to try to help decipher how in the world is that going to affect education and how do we help, right? So kind of a cool thing. And then we get to work with a lot of school districts. We do a lot of work with superintendents, et cetera. So we really appreciate this opportunity to speak with you all. Hopefully you'll find some good value in what this discussion is about. So with that, I'm going to start with a little video, and this will be that first warning about my irreverent sense of humor will be this first video. So without any further ado, we'll get rolling.
It's just, there's all this pressure, you know? And sometimes it feels like it's right up on me, and I can just feel it, like literally feel it in my head, and it's relentless, and I don't know if it's gonna stop. I mean, that's the thing that scares me the most, is that I don't know if it's ever gonna stop.
Yeah. Well, you do have a nail in your head.
It is not about the nail.
Are you sure? Because, I mean, I'll bet if we got that out of there...
Stop trying to fix it.
No, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just pointing out that maybe the nail is causing...
You always do this. You always try to fix things when what I really need is for you to just listen.
No, see, I don't think that is what you need. I think what you need is to get the nail
See, you're
out.
not even listening now.
Okay, fine. I will listen. Fine.
It's just... Sometimes it's like there's this achy... I don't know what it is. And I'm not sleeping very well at all. And all my sweaters are snagged. I mean, all of them.
Yeah, that sounds really hard.
It is. Thank you. Ow!
Oh, come on. Ow. If you would just...
Don't...
Who here has seen that before? It's awesome, isn't it? Yeah. So what I love about this is it's not about the nail. Even though we're going to talk a lot about technology, it's not about the technology, right? It's truly about what do we do with that technology. And so hopefully we'll try to align a lot of what I talked about here today with some of these really kind of cool things that are occurring and happening, but how do they actually impact teaching and learning, right? So we'll kind of think about that, as well as how is this going to affect the rest of the private sector world, right? Because that's what we're preparing our students for. So with that, we'll start off with a little bit of data. So this was a study that was done, school administrator, I think maybe 4 or 5 years ago, where they asked students across the country this question, do you love school, right? So this chart that I'm going to show up here in a moment is going to show from grades kindergarten through grades 12 what their answers are. Anyone want to guess what that's going to look like? This is sad that you all believe it's going to be a ski jump, very much, yeah, or a cliff. Something like that? Yeah, sadly you're right. So we look at this, right, and we look at some of those answers, right? So kindergarten, first grade, 90+% of our kids love school, right? By the time we get to middle school, it's in severe decline. And by the time you get to 9th grade, right, you're coming into high school, you're a low person on the totem pole, there's hormones going galore. All of a sudden, I just don't like school. And then you go, man, I'm gonna have to earn a living. School's starting to look a little bit better, right? I don't know if I love it or not, but at least I like it. Right? So one of the things I think we have to ask ourselves is why, right? So why do we love school in our early grade levels, and why do we now no longer love it, right? I think sometimes we beat some of the creativity or test some of the creativity out of our students, but I also think it's experiential, right? So think back to what it was like in a first grade classroom, right? Were we in a room like this doing lectures all day? No. What was it? We're typically working in small groups and pods, right? Did almost everything have some sort of a project built around it we were creating, et cetera? Did it all have relevancy behind what we were teaching, right? To their real world as a student? Yeah, we had this great relevancy, project-based, a lot of discussion, and we created things, right? And we work typically small groups together and then kind of solve problems wrapped around it. And then what do? We move away from that experiential relevancy behind what we're teaching and learning, right? To our real world to let's teach in isolation, and we don't bring the relevancy back in. We don't do the creativity sort of piece of this, right? And so we think we have to do that. And I think technology can be a help there, but we have to really start to rethink how do we change those environments so that we give students the kind of experiences that we would hope we would have, right? So with that, I'm going to start with a question for you all. So I'm going to give you guys a math question here first thing in the morning. You guys ready for this? Any math teachers? Nobody wants to admit, oh, we do have one. Good. So this is for you. All right. You ready? All right. Your name is?
Alan.
Alan, you've got 36 candy bars. You eat 29 of them. What do you have?
A real problem?
Maybe diabetes?
Yeah.
So are our kids brilliant, right? They are brilliant, right? They're so creative in the way that they answer things, right? Who here's graded tests before? Yes, right? You may not think they're creative until you start grading tests and you go, oh my God, are they unbelievably creative, right? Absolutely. So I love that. Here's another question for history buffs. Imagine that you lived at the same time as Abraham Lincoln. What would you say to him or ask him? Anyone? How about, well, I'd tell him not to go to a play ever. Those answers wrong necessarily? No, not necessarily, right? Our kids are incredibly creative, right? We just sometimes beat that creativity out of them. I'll tell you, if I was grading those papers, I would give them some credit for those, right? Love those, right? So we think it really boils down to how do we get to more what we call active learning, right? Where we're learning by doing, we're learning by creating, by making, and then at the highest level, right, that our students are actually teaching other students, right? That's where you show mastery of subjects instead of what I'm doing to you today in a lecture-based sort of format, which is really one of the least effective ways to learn. So how do we kind of move towards that? We think in STEM, probably more than any other area, it's maybe even more important. So this is some interesting data, right? This came out of Bureau of Labor Statistics, and they were looking at where are the jobs growing in the next 5 years. And so these are the jobs that will have the highest growth rates over the next 5 years, right? Almost every single one of those, if you look at them, has some sort of tie to STEM, right? Or to STEAM. And one of the things that was really concerning about BLS is that by 2022, they believe we're going to have a 3 million student shortfall of not graduating enough students prepared for the jobs with the degrees that are required for those jobs. Is that kind of scary? And actually right now they're looking at it, they think it's closer to 3.5 million, right? So after a year or so after doing that data. This is scary. It's scary to us at HP. We see the graying of our engineering staff, right? We're trying to hang on to all of our engineers because we just can't get enough, and we're competing for those engineers as well. So really kind of enlightening sort of data. We think this is kind of interesting too. You guys know that we have, particularly in the US, some anomalies of gaps in STEM education. One of those kind of curious gaps is a gender gap. You know that we have the world's worst gender gap in the developed nation of girls going into STEM careers, going into STEM subject areas inside of colleges and universities, particularly in computer science. Anybody here been in a computer science or computer engineering classroom recently in the university? How many girls are there typically compared to guys, right? It's frightening, right? You can probably count them on one hand, right? So really kind of unique, and that anomaly is happening where we see this kind of unique thing in the US. It's happening about 6th grade, where socially our girls are going, you know what, this isn't right for me. This isn't something that we should be doing, right? This is something that's a boys' world, and it's where boys go and play. And there's no other nation like that, right, in the developed world. We don't see this almost anywhere else. So kind of unique. The other sort of unique thing that we see is that there's a huge issue with generational poverty. Our students who have been in poverty forever, right? Their parents, their grandparents, et cetera, they don't realize that those careers are available. They don't realize how much opportunity there is here. The creative, wonderful sort of things you can go do, right? I'm a total nerd. So those careers that we were looking at are things that I go, oh my God, those are the things I would want to be doing, right? I raised a nerd. I raised a fourth grade science and math teacher. And so those are things that we think are really important. How in the world can technology help us here? Could we find ways to take technology, rethink sort of our teaching and learning processes, and get to those gap students? I think that's where we have a great opportunity. And so those are some of the things we'll talk about. One of the things that we saw that was kind of interesting, and OECD does the PISA test where we compare US to the rest of the developed nations, where we typically score in the middle of the pack, right? In the US, we've actually on a little bit of an uptick right now, but we typically don't vary a whole heck of a lot. We're not great test takers, and you know what? We're not a homogenistic society either, right? Like a lot of those countries that perform really well, right? You think about Singapore, we think about the Scandinavian countries, et cetera. One of the things was interesting when they took a look at this last data, OECD actually did another sort of cut of the data, and they pulled out the US students who live in poverty out of those test scores. Any idea where our US students scored? Top 3. We have a poverty issue. We have a poverty issue. How in the world do we get to those students, right? Think about that. I look at the advantages that my daughter had, right, growing up, have huge advantages over those students who never realize that these things are available. So when we can reach to them, that's where we think we can really kind of change this educational system, and particularly in the STEM subject areas. We need to reach them because we can eliminate that 3.5 million student gap. If we can get to our girls at the younger ages, and get to these students of poverty. Makes sense? We think it's really huge. I have a good friend of mine, Tom Greaves, who's anybody heard of Project Red? Yeah, Tom kind of started that with Leslie Wilson, and they did some data sort of research. If we could fulfill those $3.5 million, we would add $3 trillion to the US economy if we could fulfill those with US students who are ready for those jobs, right? It's a huge, huge number. So very, very important. So what are some of these technologies that we think could inspire our students and want to get into these fields? Hopefully we can use these to attract those STEM gap students. We think there's great opportunity in Maker. Who here is doing Makerspace or thinking about changing or morphing things to Maker, right? I think it's huge. You guys know that manufacturing is going to go through a monumental disruption, right? And it's just really getting started right now. It's going to kind of blow you away. We'll share some of that. I'm going to show you a little picture, or excuse me, a little short video from Google's Maker environment. We really kind of got into this real early. We think it's really kind of interesting.
My name is Mamie Reingold. I'm a program manager at Google, and we're in the garage. Google Garage is our hacker maker design space for Googlers. So it is this commons where Googlers can come together across the company to learn and create and make. So since it's really important to us that the garage is multi-user and multi-use, we really needed to build flexibility into the space.
The garage is kind of like my playground. When you come in, you can see that you can write on the tables, you can write on the walls, and then you can reconfigure the tables to be in any position that you want. Everything is on wheels. And that allows people to be flexible and to be more playful in a way that the typical space and the typical conference room just wouldn't.
Googlers were always confined to where there was an Ethernet port or power outlet on the walls. And we wanted to make sure that you were never confined to a particular space in the room. So we built the power and networking on a grid that drops down from the ceiling so that you can go anywhere and it's always in reach.
Well, I'd say the main thing we teach here is how to have fun. I've always described Google as kind of a mix between kindergarten and a classy law firm. And in terms of productivity, I think that's what really makes people work together better, is having a sense of fun, non-competitiveness, non-hierarchy.
The space doesn't need to be fancy in order to be very functional, but what it really needs to be is flexible.
Kind of cool. You guys seen that before? Had a chance to tour Google Spaces. I have a sister-in-law who's worked for Google for a long time and several friends there. It's amazing. That room is never empty. It's crazy, right? The Googlers love to go there, right? And spend time and work together and think through challenges, create, etc. Do you think your students would like something like that inside of your school? Absolutely. I think it would be the most popular spot you could ever create, right? Absolutely. So there's all sorts of ways that you can redesign. There is no one right way. The right way is what works for you and your environment. And so we have to kind of think through that. What are we trying to accomplish? There are folks like Penn State at their innovation studio who are continually redesigning what could and what should spaces begin to look like. There are universities who are going right now and reinventing their libraries. Do you know that? Like VCU right now has a 3-story library. I don't remember how many thousands of square feet that it is, but they've turned this into maker environments on whole floors of these garage, small spaces, flexible spaces, getting really, really creative. We think there's an opportunity for us to start to think through that. How could we do that, particularly inside of K-12? And if you haven't explored this, it's one of the things that we would urge you to start to look at, right? Makerspace.com is a really great place to kind of start and look what's kind of happening. I'm going to share with you one example, because I got started at this in library redesign in 2013 or 14. One of the things at HP they allow us to do is to donate our time to not-for-profits or to things that we have a huge passion about. And so I got hit by one of our salespeople actually was saying, you know what, I was talking with someone at the library system in a large city in Texas, and they were trying to figure out what do we do with our libraries when we don't have books in them anymore. Anybody else thinking about that? Yeah, right, it is, right, you think about it. And so they're going, what in the world are we going to do? We have lots of students come, they come after school, but all they're doing is coming in what? Any idea? Using Wi-Fi. They're going to go do, right? This was in an urban city, right? And they had Wi-Fi at home. So they were coming and using the Wi-Fi, and that's all they were really doing. The rest of the community wasn't even necessarily using it unless you had gray hair. So you had kids coming after school, and you had people with gray hair that were using the library, and nobody else was, right? So they're trying to think through what could we do. So they asked if we would help, and I asked if I could donate some of my time. We spent about 4 weeks straight kind of working with them on this. What could a library become? And we asked a ton of questions, and we ended up coming up with that there could be maybe these 6 areas that we could kind of rethink what the library could become. And this is what they came up with, which was they were looking at a career and technical ed and after school section, right? So that students could come and not just use the Wi-Fi, but actually maybe even get homework help. So what they were going to do was reach out to their local high schools and say, you know what, can we get a teacher and we'll pay the teacher to come and actually provide homework help after school? Would that be a cool thing? That was brilliant, right? It was a terrific idea. And how could we also maybe get some career advice, et cetera, there? They wanted to do more high-end sort of creative work. Could we do some digital media creation, and could we create an environment like that? A makerspace, a collaboratory where they could share maybe speakers and have speakers come in and then video conference those different speakers at libraries or different locations. A small business center. And they actually did this. They actually brought the SBA in. And so there's folks in the library, and SBA actually has their offices inside of the library. I thought that was a brilliant place, right? And you can get work experience, you can get training, et cetera, kind of wrapped around that. And so it's kind of how they were looking at it is they had these little pockets of rooms. So it's kind of an odd-shaped library, the first one we kind of looked at. And as we kind of walked through, we said, well, what could this become? And this was kind of an idea here for their CTE and after school. What they wanted to have was space, kind of a lab space that's flexible, where you could have that teacher there, they could work with students, they could collaborate, have a place to project, et cetera. But they also wanted to have a place where students could go explore careers that were important in that community, right? So in this community, they had one of the largest cancer centers, and they also had a huge oil and gas business, right? And so they said, you know what, boy, I wish we could get some help from like those companies that have their headquarters here. And I said, well, have you talked to them? And they went, no. I said, you know what, I bet you go talk to those foundations. They would be really interested in doing something or maybe even funding this for you. Sure enough, they did. They bent over backwards to help them create this sort of environment where students can go learn about careers and opportunities, et cetera, that those companies sponsor, and they didn't even have to pay for it. It was something that even though the library system didn't think of. Think of that in your own community. Could you look at something like that? Are there businesses that would love to be able to get in front of your students and help them understand what sort of careers are available, right? We can keep that brain drain from leaving a lot of our communities. I think it's really important. Digital media was another thing. They were hearing from students, they wish they had places where they could go to create music, create video, do editing of different sorts of levels. Could you create environments like that? And they figured out a way to look at it and say, yes, we can, right? We can create kind of glass enclosures, we can check them in and out so the students can go, give them help where they need it, maybe even provide some electronic instruments in the audio creation area, right, where they could actually do some really sort of creative work, provide some high-end sort of workstation class machines to do video editing, and it wasn't going to cost that much. So as they started thinking through this, wow, this starts to become something we might be able to go do. And then in the maker environment, how do we create this flexible space where we encourage artists to come in and speak, right, and teach and do things inside of that space that we attract more and more people in, right? So I think there's opportunity for us. We just have to think through, we have to ask the right kinds of questions. What's important inside of our community? There's new technologies coming out, particularly like immersive computing. They're going to allow amazing things to kind of happen, right? 3D scanning is coming so far. You can 3D scan objects in your hands now, right? And it pulls your hands out of the scan as you do it in a couple of minutes. Is that wild? Unreal. You can take devices like we see here that's got 2 screens, right? Who here uses 2 screens maybe at their desk, at home or the office? Wouldn't it be awesome to have 1 screen though, right on your desk, that was all touch enabled, that maybe had 20 points of touch? So you could have 2 people collaborating together, or take a students, right, doing some collaborative sort of work. Would that be kind of cool in a maker environment with 3D scanners built in? Yeah, so there are products like this right now, right? And they're being reinvented as we speak. Wouldn't it be cool to take a stylus and have the technology in the stylus be able to take any flat surface and turn it into an interactive space that we could be projecting or recording what we're doing and working? What if that was only maybe $200? Would that be kind of interesting? Yeah, right? Cool sort of thing for this maker environment. So immersive computing is really kind of at that crossroads, and some of the first products are coming out right now. We're going to show you a school district that was deploying some of this inside of a maker environment with a project-based learning sort of model.
Bonsall High School is a new tech high school. It's really designed to help students integrate the theoretical knowledge of the classroom with hands-on practical.
The final project is a working Rube Goldberg machine. Students have designed their machines, they have done revision on the Sprout, and they've even done some text work with it, so it's completely integrated at all steps. Because of the interest in the Sprout and then the excitement of building this crazy machine contraption, there was a lot of pride and excitement about the project itself. Sprout is right on that cutting edge of creation and what is new. Be risk takers, use the technology, get the kids in front of it, and get out of the way.
You guys seen that before? Really kind of wild, right? I love that model of, let's create this Rube Goldberg experiment, but let's take the digital world, the physical world, kind of incorporate them together, right? Get students really kind of thinking outside of the box. We love that sort of move. So could we think, right, what should we be deploying inside of our libraries? What should our libraries become? I think it's a great question to really start asking. If you aren't asking yourself right now, I think we should. I think there's a lot more that students could be doing to be more creative. You think this sort of environment helps students love school? Right? That's a class you want to come to every day, right? Probably want to be at versus some of your other classrooms. So thinking through that and incorporating those we think is cool. So another thing that's changing on the manufacturing level is 3D printing. And we believe this is going to be one of the most disrupted businesses in the next 10 years. Do you guys know where most of our manufacturing is done now? Overseas, right? In Asia, right? We think that we're going to see a lot more manufacturing being done at local levels. And any idea why? There's a hint up there. 3D printing. 3D printing is changing at a remarkable level. Who here is deploying 3D printers, and you've seen 3D printers in your schools? You see the hands, right? But what are they? They're typically the extrusion printers, right? The plastics, and they're kind of cool, right? You can, create some kind of cool things here, but we're also seeing, even with that sort of technology, we're seeing students do amazing things, right? Creating prosthetics, right? That sort of technology. Guess what? That technology is changing rapidly, and you're going to see some amazing things happen in 3D printing. Laser sintering, a technology called jet fusion, are absolutely changing what we can do. Have you guys seen these 3D houses that are being done in China and Russia right now? It's wild. If you haven't seen this, you need to look at the videos and see how long it takes them to build a home. In 24 hours, they can go from nothing to a home and ready to move in. Is that crazy? Yeah, it's wild. What about the ability, like a Nike, right, to actually custom build your shoes? Anybody watch Thursday Night Football? There were some big guys out there, weren't there? These guys that are like 6'7" and 350, have a size 18 foot, right? Wouldn't it be cool to build a custom shoe for them that has the spaces for their bunion, that allows them to customize, right, what sort of cleat goes on the bottom, right? And what if that could be printed and done that same day? You can try it on and be ready to go in a couple hours, right? We're nearing that sort of productivity level, that sort of delivery level. One of these technologies, called jet fusion printing, is actually allowing us to print at the molecular level and to give multiple properties to each one of these little tiny things we call a voxel. So you can apply different materials all printed at the same time, with each one of those having its own properties. It could have its own color, it could be flexible, it could be transparent, it could conduct electricity, it could be metal, it could be a graphite sort of product, it could be incredibly strong, it could be flexible. It's wild where this is going, right? And believe it or not, these are already being deployed right now. So it's technology that's just coming to the forefront. And manufacturing is latching onto this right away. We're seeing 3D manufacturing businesses prop up in almost every sort of major city. It's the sort of technology that we're also seeing higher education latch onto, right? To be able to deploy inside of their engineering classrooms. Wouldn't it be cool to be able to rapidly prototype your design you just created and have a working model of it? Would that be kind of cool? Yeah, and then go, hey, I make these tweaks, let's start producing them, and then start producing them, right at that local level. Would that be cool for you guys to not have to deploy that technology and maybe contract out with a 3D print as a service organization, or maybe with your local community college or university who's deploying this? Instead of you taking 30 days to print 30 of these plastic projects to upload your files, and then 2 days later they all show up on your doorstep, would that be kind of cool? Kind of the same costs? Yeah, this is where we're kind of getting to, right? Project-based learning kind of on steroids. Here's one of those companies who's already leveraging this technology in kind of a new way.
There are so many applications, so many verticals in different industries that we can now do production in, because the cost is significantly less. And then you have a process that's just inherently extremely fast.
I own a small electronics company called Knuckle Dragger Design, and we make primarily communications equipment for mostly government, typically build to order. And so we don't really do high quantity stuff. It's always like 0 to maybe like 100 pieces, per order.
Most of the applications that Knuckle Dragger is making is enclosures, some brackets, a lot of internal components.
The MJF is really nice because we can actually design the parts and get them quickly. And they're printed, so we can kind of design them however we want. Where previously we were restricted by the manufacturing methods.
Some of the benefits there is also condensing the total amount of parts that are typically made in a lot of these pieces, where you'd have to design one part, another part, and then produce them all separately and then marry them all together. Where now you can take some of those parts and say, hey, I'm not going to make 3 parts, I'm going to make this into 1 part.
The printer allows us to make better designs and newer designs. For us, it's really neat. We can kind of design some more interesting features into our parts. And the parts have come out really nice.
The speed in MJF is the game changer for how you can actually go into manufacturing.
I wish I was young again, because you can just do whatever you want. And then you just design exactly what you want, the way you want it, and then you just send it off to the printer.
Did you hear that? Where you can take what would normally take 3 parts you'd have to print individually and kind of fit them together, but now I can actually print them already together into 1 part, right? It's wild, because you can print at this molecular level and you're layering up. It allows you to print interlocking, interweaved parts already to go, right? One of the things that we saw AutoCAD is latching onto this technology right now to reinvent their engineering software tools, right? CAD, et cetera, Pro Engineer doing the same, so they can take advantage of this technology. I think this is something that might be important for your students for the future, being able to know and understand what this is, to start to learn to program, to start to learn to design, absolutely. Are you ready to do it now? No, but you need to be thinking about it, right? Because this is where the future is going. 10 years from now, for example, at HP, this will be our biggest industry. We will do more business in 3D printing than we do in PCs and printers now. And guess what? We're the #1 PC and printer company in the world, right? Kind of crazy, right? When you start to think about the scale of this. But this will absolutely disrupt this $12 trillion business to be able to manufacture at the local level. What do you think this does to warehouses full of parts? Go away, right? And you can print at that local level. So, what does this mean? I think these are the sort of questions we have to start asking, right? So it's going to disrupt manufacturing. So what does that mean for us? We need to make sure that our students know this is available, know that these sort of technologies are on the forefront, and this could be somewhere that they could specialize. It could be something that if they have an interest in, they could definitely go down that path. If they have an interest in doing design of a product, they have this great idea for something, a business, a product, whatever, they can create that product and have it working, right? And have working models printed that they can deliver on, and then learn how to use it. So startup businesses can be enabled at an almost unbelievable sort of speed, right? And without a whole lot of investment. Medical is going to be, I think, one of the first industries that really picks up on what this sort of potential is. And we're talking about the folks at Wake Medical Systems who are designing the hospitals of the future. They're thinking that they see these being deployed in the basement of every single hospital, right? So think about this, a hospital, how many parts do you have there? How many different pieces and components? If you run out of something, is that a big deal? If it takes 2 days to get it back in stock again, could that be a life and death sort of a thing? Absolutely. What if we could do that on the fly? NASA is incredibly interested in this. Any idea why? In space, I need a part. There's our astronauts with bubble gum and duct tape figuring out how to build something, right? What if you could go print whatever you actually needed, right? Pretty darn cool. So there are 200 universities right now building new materials for this. And so there's a huge business right now underway of how do you develop these different materials that you can now print in. And the universities are really kind of leading that. We think medical bioengineering is where a lot of that's going to come. How about customizing a disc orthotic that goes inside of your back to relieve pressure? Building one and customizing it, doctors can't typically do that. They have to choose between these pre-made sort of configures and hope that they work for you. But what if they could take your measurements three-dimensionally, right? Take those and build it exactly perfectly to fit where it needs to go. That'd be kind of cool? Yeah. So it's absolutely going to change how we do a lot of things. Virtual reality is another one of these, right? That's changing. Who here's ever done virtual reality? Right? Done some of this? Boy, the first time I did this, I went, I can't believe you can do this. It's just your cell phone in a $20 cardboard box, right? And it's wild, right? It's amazing how immersed you get into this. But this is kind of the baby step version, right, of virtual reality. This is absolutely changing rapidly. We're going to be able to do, and already able to do, some truly amazing things. Wouldn't it be great to be able to do virtual reality training, right, on equipment, heavy equipment, before I ever put somebody and put this equipment in their hands and they destroy something or hurt themselves, right? How about in the hands of teachers, to be able to practice on virtual students before they destroy our real students, right? My daughter, when I showed her this, who's a brand new teacher in Austin, Texas, went, oh my God, I wish I could have practiced before I got in the classroom like this, right? How do I handle these difficult sort of situations? My first parent-teacher conference, I would love to practice that first, right? Would that be kind of cool? It's available now, right? Right now you see someone behind the scenes, kind of like a puppet, kind of controlling that for you, but AI will take that over in the next year or two. So things are rapidly changing there, right? We think training, this is going to be huge for us. One of the things we really like about VR and the goggle environment, who here's done that where you're totally immersed, right? The Oculus or Vive or whatnot. It's amazing what a time suck that is, isn't it? Once you get in it, you do not want to get out of it. Someone has to tap me on my shoulder to get me off of it. But you're typically tethered, right? You're tethered to a machine, and so you can only do certain things. That's changed already, right? And we'll show you some of the technology that's making some of that change, but the ability to move. What if I could create this whole room here? I pull the chairs out and I create a full-size room that I just designed in this space and be able to move around in that space. What if it was an office that I just designed and I wanted to walk through what it really looked like at the scale that I did? Would that be cool? What if I just invented a giant bulldozer and I wanted to go through it and see it at full size and full scale? Would that be kind of cool? Yeah, you definitely can do that now.
To
Today we have students at the Z-Space stations. In 7th grade at Baylor College of Medicine Academy, we have scientific decision making, which is exploring science in the state of Texas. And in this class, students do project-based learning, and Z-Space is a wonderful tool for us to do formative assessment and have the students look more holistically and three-dimensionally at body systems.
Here's seeing Z-Space. There you don't even need goggles, right? You just need 3D glasses. It's pretty darn cool. Any idea where this is being used in maybe a commercial sort of space? Anybody have an idea? What about in medicine? So think about that, right? You saw that heart come right off the screen, right? And you have this 3D space that you get to work in just by putting on 3D glasses. What if you could take a patient's CT scan or MRI as a doctor, and instead of looking at these sliced images, be able to see it all come to life right in front of you, like live tissue? What if you could then interact with that and actually almost perform the surgery before you ever operate on someone, right? Or what about, who here's had surgery before? Who here's had a doctor explain what they were gonna do and you came out of it going, I have no idea what he just told me, right? You don't want to seem stupid, so you don't ask, right? Yes. So we think that this is really cool, and if you haven't seen this, we urge you to get your hands on it. And I believe Z-Space is here, so get a chance to actually demo some of that as well. So that technology, for example, is already being deployed. We have universities right now that are changing out their whole university anatomy labs to this virtual reality environment, right? University of Texas, their nursing program, has eliminated their wet lab because they couldn't get cadavers. Things you learn in education, there's a cadaver shortage in the US. And so they actually now have created these virtual labs that students get to see. I think it's like 4,000 anonymized CT scans and MRIs. So you're a nursing student and you want to see what a compound fracture looks like, you can actually see one in full 3D and explore it. And you can do it 24/7, right? You want to see what cancer looks like. You want to see what an inclusion on a lung is. You want to see someone who's got brain disease. You can see it in an actual patient that's been anonymized. Is that kind of cool? Yeah, things you'd never be able to do. What about dissect a human eye? Anybody ever done that? What do you do it over and over and over again? This is what this sort of allows you to do. Think about those younger students where they have interest levels. What if we could get this available to them in our libraries? There are a few of these that they could go explore at the levels that they want to, fairly inexpensively. So these are the things that we think we need to put in the back of our mind.
There's no reason why a doctor should be looking at a 2D image in 2016. I can grab a piece of tissue and take it out, evaluate it. EchoPixel is a software platform that we call True 3D for next generation displays, and our software drives these displays to create an open 3D space on top of the desk where doctors can load volumetric data like CT or MRI and see patient anatomy that they can reach in, create dissection. When a doctor gets in front of our system, they put on these glasses and they're going to see an object floating on top of their desk. And then they can move around the screen and they can see around the patient. And afterwards, they can grab a stylus and reach into that open 3D space, create a cross-section or trace a vessel, or they can just simply grab a tumor and extract it as they might do during surgery. And it makes it more intuitive for them because they don't have to solve a 3D problem from looking at 2D images. We're very fortunate to be working with leading doctors. Stanford University is where we're doing the pediatric work, and Cleveland Clinic, we're helping them do surgical planning for liver surgery. So we already have customers that are taking advantage of our entry-level product and using it on patients with great results. We will also be doing a lot of sharing of information. So think about doctors at Stanford sharing their surgical plans with doctors in Asia. This way, we're really enabling the expert doctors to have a wider reach around the world.
Is that cool? If you haven't got your hands on this and you've got a chance to do it here, I would urge you to go do that, right? It's really, really cool. So we see 3D happening all over the place. We think it's going to change training, how we do sort of experiential sort of training. There's a company called Immersion, we'll show you a little video here in a moment, who's looking at that in a bunch of different ways. Design at just a scale that is really kind of unheard of, and it really is that these technologies are enabling this to occur. Pretty wild, isn't it? So if you notice that, right, they're wearing this backpack, and it's got batteries on it, right? So that the device has a battery in it, but you have battery packs on the actual waistband that you have extra sets. So while you pull 2 off, you know, it's running on the battery on the unit, you replace them with 2 others, charge them up, so you can just go with this 24/7, right? It's kind of wild how that works and how you can interface. Cool stuff. So we're going to wrap up here real briefly. Hopefully you saw some kind of cool things here that are going to allow us to rethink, right? What could we be doing and at what level, right? You can't go deploy all of this stuff immediately, and it doesn't make sense. You have to have the right sort of reason to go do that. But I think we need to really think, how can we attract more of those gap students, particularly inside of your schools, right, to these areas? And how do we do that, right, in a way that allows them to give them deep dive sort of opportunities? Think of like that Z space. What if we could give students the ability to go deep dive that 24/7, or as long as your library was open, right? All you do is check out the 3D glasses, and away they go. They can go explore to their heart's content, right? Absolutely. Higher levels of creativity, right? Beyond the power of what a Chromebook can do. It can do a lot, but it sure can't do any of those things, right? And so we have to think about that, not just in labs, not just libraries. How do we provide this at a different level? I don't know if everybody noticed that first slide that I portrayed had this here. Anybody know what that is? Well, almost, kind of. Yeah, I own a little bit of HP, so it is. This is the garage that our founders started HP in. Any idea? It's on the National Historic Landmarks. Any idea why it's there? It's the birthplace of Silicon Valley. Bill and Dave started Silicon Valley in the 1930s. Any idea who their very first customer was? What was that? IBM? IBM didn't exist. Yeah. No, Walt Disney. Walt Disney was doing this really creative movie with Mickey Mouse. Any idea what that movie was? Fantasia? Fantasia, right? And he needed these audio oscillators to get the sound quality that he wanted. He went to Bill and Dave and said, hey, could you build these for us? They went and built it for us. That was our very first customer. They are still our customer today, right? So really kind of interesting. They invented this rules of the garage, and these are the rules that HP employees live by. I think it's kind of interesting, right? So some of these include believe you can change the world, work quickly, keep tools unlocked, work whenever, know when to work alone, when to work together, share tools and ideas, trust your colleagues, no politics, no bureaucracy. The customer defines a job well done. Radical ideas are not bad ideas, invent different ways of working, make a contribution every day. If it doesn't contribute, it doesn't leave the garage. Believe that together we can do anything and invent. And we think this has great applicability inside of our schools and in the classroom, right? You folks are changing the world, right? Think about it. All of those young minds that you are impacting right now, we absolutely are. But we have to learn to teach differently, to take advantage of where this world is changing, right? We have to adapt as well. Our students are adapting incredibly easy. We've got to teach differently, keep those tools unlocked. Learning happens whenever, wherever. Know when to lead and when to listen to others. Share tools, ideas, trust your stakeholders. No politics, no bureaucracy, no egos. Ridiculous in a classroom. Your student's future success defines a job well done. Radical ideas are not bad ideas. Invent different ways of teaching and learning. Make a contribution every day. If it doesn't contribute to students, it doesn't get in the classroom. Believe that together we can do anything and inspire. So I'm going to finish with one last question. So HP makes a lot of printers, right? Who here thinks paper is dead? Show of hands. Not very many people think it's dead, but there's a few. I have proof positive. Paper is not dead.
Emma. Huh? Emma. 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 Emma.
So there's hands-on demos of a lot of this. We'd love to explore other questions with you. I want to thank MicroK12 for inviting us out here today. Hopefully this is a wonderful event for all of you. We learned a ton. Thank you all so much.